So before this video gets started, I'd like to do a shout out to the guys who are responsible for these muskets that we got out here. A couple guys from my platoon. That would be old Weston and Estevan, and a guy who wants to be referred to as Big Sarge Danger Doug, also known as Other Ethan. Thanks guys, appreciate it. Yeah, letting us shoot these muskets in these videos. Take aim! Fire! Hello everybody, welcome to another video of 18th century weapons with 11 Bang Bang. I'm your host Ethan Woods, and today we're going to be talking about a very interesting piece of American history, 1795 Springfield. Let's go ahead and pop a shot right here. Ah yes, 1795 Springfield. A lot of history here, a lot of history. This is one of the few muskets that I actually went and looked into some documents, and I found a lot of very interesting stuff about this gun. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the history of it. The 1795 Springfield was the very first firearm that was made solely by Springfield. It was also the very first U.S. adopted weapon that was American made as far as small arms go. This is the actual musket that you see on all the infantry symbolism, like the crossed rifles and the CIB, the EIB, all of those badges, those are all 1795 Springfields. The story of this musket starts back in 1766 with the 1766 Charleville. Now, for those of you who don't know, the 1766 Charleville was the musket that we used in the American Revolutionary War. The American soldiers loved these muskets so much that whenever they went and they had their own muskets made in 1790, I believe was the year they started doing it, the U.S. government had independent contractors go out and make muskets, but they wanted them in the Charleville pattern. And that's what Springfield started doing in 1795. Now, the actual name of this musket is not the 1795 Springfield. It's actually called I believe the 69 caliber musket of Charleville pattern, I think is the actual name for it. So anyhow, they started making these in 1795. Now, it's really hard to tell whether or not a 1795 Springfield that was made in 1795 is the actual real McCoy, because there's no markings on it. There's no Springfield, there's no Eagle, nothing like that. However, in the year of 1799, the U.S. government said, you know what, let's have you guys start actually putting markings on here so we know who made it, and that way if something goes wrong, we can go and find who they are and, you know, give them a mean word or two. And so that was when Springfield started their Type 1 1799 or 1795 Springfields in 1799. So about these types of Springfields, like I said, there's a Type 1, a Type 2, and there's a Type 3, and there's a Type 4. This one is a Type 1 1795-1800. We know this because of the way the Springfield is set on the lock and because of the shape of the trigger and the trigger guard. Now later on these different types of Springfields, they eventually moved the Springfield writing on down to underneath the lock and then underneath the eagle as time went on, and they got closer to the 1816 model. But that was pretty much the development of this musket. It is identical to a 1766 Charleville in every way, shape, and form, and that's how it was in history too. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with military heritage, the job that the people that make these did with these. At first I looked at it, I was like, that's not very historically accurate, because it looked just like a Charleville, and I was looking at a different model. I think I was looking at a first generation Type 1, just straight 1795, not the 1795 1800. And there's one general that I'm thinking about right now, and let me tell you a little story about how one Simcoe, General Simcoe, British soldier, was responsible for the British, in a very roundabout way, he was responsible for the British losing the Battle of New Orleans, where these things were used to great effect by the Americans. So what about this story about how this Simcoe guy went and was responsible for the British losing the Battle of New Orleans? Well, it all starts off with when the Simcoe came to North America. He had a job of training new soldiers, and one of the soldiers he trained was a young lieutenant by the name of Tarleton. Now Tarleton took his training and he became very, very ruthless. Matter of fact, there was a time at a battle, I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, I'm going to put it right here, where this Tarleton went and took and executed a bunch of American prisoners. Now there were a few of them who got away, and they went and they hid out in a church, a local church where people were praying. Tarleton caught wind of this, went and found them, rounded them all up, and anybody caught rendering aid was immediately taken as a prisoner. Now one of these people that was lending aid was an 11-year-old boy. He got taken prisoner, was serving on a prison ship, and was actually told by one of the British officers that he was to polish his boots for him. And when this young little fireball said no, the British officer went and cut his face open with a saber. That kid had a really mean hatred for the British right after that. His name was Andrew Jackson. And later on, by the looks in his eyes and just how hard his face looked, his men started to call him Old Hickory, because his face looked like an old hickory tree. Well, that's about all I got to say for today. So, as always, thank you for watching. Trust in God. And keep your powder dry. Bye.